So interesting statements from Witkoff. Although this is not all, dear friends, he also spoke about risks that Kiev regime and globalist backers of this regime might trigger. For example, let's listen to this.
Do you think he's speaking to realistic, clear-eyed people who can, who have the welfare of Ukraine in mind?
So without getting into names,
yeah,
I've talked to multiple European leaders, and I've said to them, the more you encourage him not to be proactive at the peace table, the more you suggest that aid will continue without any conditions attached to it. No one says that we shouldn't aid Ukraine today or in the reconstruction later on, but it's got to come with certain conditions. If we're going to give a lot of money to Ukraine, we want to hear the business plan of how this is going to get resolved, because it's an unsustainable business plan if they don't have a plan for how it gets resolved. We just can't forever give money because they'll get ground down. And ultimately, and this is, we've discussed this in the administration, ultimately, what you can't have here is risk of any kind of nuclear action, even a tactical nuclear action. I mean, even if it's not a big bomb explosion,
doesn't matter.
Just a tactical nuke would take stock markets down all over the world.
Well, they haven't been used in 80 years. They've been used exactly twice in human history.
You can't allow it to happen.
It's not a precedent you want at all.
And while I think we have to get a fair deal for Ukraine, we cannot allow that country to drag us into World War III. And that's not my policy. That's President Trump's policy.
So interesting statements here from Witkoff and dear friends. He already highlighted that there is he might not say it directly, but there is a clearly distance or tensions between U.S. leadership and the leadership of number of European states that are pushing for further escalation with Russia. Leadership of UK, France, first of all. And he also said, maybe not as directly as one would like, but still he spoke about risks of World War III, isn't it? That US or this world cannot allow Ukraine and its globalist backers to basically drag this war into world war, right? And this is absolutely true. We cannot allow these globalist psychopaths and their puppets in the governments of UK or France or the so-called Ukraine to endanger entire humanity. And when Witkoff spoke about explosion of nuclear bomb, I think he did not mean that Russia would deploy nukes. I think he meant that these globalists and the countries that are under control in Europe, France and UK, they might actually push Kiev regime, push further escalation by transforming Kiev regime into a nuclear armed regime, and it is a Kiev regime that might deploy this tactical nuke, not a big bomb, small bomb or something. Yet again, Witkoff was not necessarily very clear on that. But I think he did not mean that Russia would deploy nukes. I think he meant that Kiev regime might do so. And if you remember, dear friends, I said many times in my previous updates that in my personal opinion, in my reading of the big picture, globalists want to escalate with Russia in two main directions. One is to transform this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky into a nuclear-armed terrorist regime. And second is to provoke direct wider war between NATO and Russia. And in both directions, concrete steps being taken by the West, isn't it? When it comes to transformation of this terrorist regime of Zelensky into a nuclear-armed regime, there was dozens and dozens of statements in the West, not just in Kiev-controlled territory, not just from Kiev's regime, but also in the West, from public figures, from politicians, that Kiev regime has enough potential to create its own atomic weapons, right? There was plenty of articles, dozens and dozens of articles that were kind of preparing the ground for this possible transformation of the Kiev regime into a nuclear armed regime. When Times magazine or or some other economist or some other so-called media outlets in the West are publishing articles how capable Kiev regime is to create atomic bombs and how much radioactive materials necessary for atomic bombs are in the hands of Kiev regime, right? I don't think that was random stuff. And I think Witkoff is clearly informed, briefed on that subject, and that's why he mentioned the explosion of their nuke. Because clearly he did not spoke, in my personal understanding, he did not spoke that Russia would deploy nukes. He spoke about dangers that Kiev regime might do so, and then all hell might break out, because obviously Russia will have no option but to, take some really, really strong action, right? And potentially, really, entire world may end up in a world war, and we don't want that. So I think if Witkoff is briefed on that matter, he has all the clearances, security clearances that is necessary, and I guess CIA and other secret services in US already briefed him about preparations or the steps that was taken by the Western countries and militaries and secret services to transform in terms of preparation of this transformation of the Kiev regime into a nuclear armed regime. And also, I'm quite sure during the Biden's administration, US was also involved in this, right? Because US was directly controlled by the globalists at that time, right? And therefore, it's Witkoff that talking about this danger of the Third World War. Trump said quite a few times, mentioned this danger, and if they are informed enough, if they know what these globalist psychopaths have in mind, then I think it is absolutely necessary some more steps and stronger steps to be taken by U.S. leadership to stop these attempts of the globalists to further escalate. And I think more honest conversation will be helpful in that. If U.S. leadership come out and openly said that was their plan, that what Biden administration was involved, for example, and that's what UK and France and some others are involved still, then I guess there will be enough outrage in this world to stop globalists, right? So US actually can lead the charge in this regards to avoid this next phase of escalation in terms of transformation of the Kiev regime into a nuclear armed regime, or the provocation of the larger war that globalists want between NATO and Russia by deploying NATO troops into Ukraine. And UK and France, they might struggling to have some support from other NATO member states, at least the more or less serious ones. This Chihuahua who was from Baltics, they don't count really. But some key players in Europe, among European NATO member states, seems like want to stay away from this idea of provoking wider war with Russia. Italy, for example, already said that they don't want to have any part of it. They will not send their troops to Ukraine. I guess Spain is on the same page, some others, and therefore, once again, in both directions of potential escalation, some steps already being taken by the globalists and their puppets in European governments, and US now clearly is in a position to stop this, to use whatever influence they have in Europe to stop this madness. And one of the ways they can do it is to go public. Tell the public that Biden's administration, UK's leadership, French's leadership, potentially German leadership were involved in this psychopathic idea to transform Kiev regime into a nuclear armed regime. And who knows, by the way, maybe some work already being done on this matter. And maybe some scientists from France, from potentially US or the UK, were actually on the ground in Kiev-controlled territory to help this terrorist regime to acquire atomic bombs. Low-yield, potentially basic atomic bombs, but still, I mean, it is extremely dangerous stuff, isn't it? So more clarity is needed, and hopefully, if Trump administration and whatever forces are behind them are serious about avoiding World War III and about de-escalating with Russia, then hopefully they will make not just statements, but they will conduct some steps that will actually stop the globalists.
Hello everyone, if you find this video interesting and useful, please click that like button, leave some commentary and share with your friends. If you like my work and want to support this project, you can do it through several means. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, including links to my Patreon and Boosty pages, where you can have access to full shows in case you are interested. Thank you.